into something different, and this is civil education program. And the topic for today is youth involvement in electoral violence. Checking it out recent times, you see most youths, they've involved themselves in one violence or the other. And the Edo gubernatorial election is just some weeks away. Today in the studio, we'll be discussing this particular topic with some very, very distinguished guests on the studio. I'm going to be introducing them to you. The first guest that we have in the studio is Comrade Grace Esse Obakina, and she's the Executive Director, Caring Heart Initiative for Advocacy and Development Empowerment. Thank you for coming to the program. Good afternoon. And also we also have Comrade Alari Inoma Edosa. He is the Public Relations Officer of Nigeria Students and Youth Association, Edo State Chapter. Thank you, sir, for coming to the program. So as you all know, the rates at which the youths are getting involved in electoral violence over time in the past and in this recent time, it's increasing day in, day out. So I'm going to start with you, Comrade Grace. What is your stake as regards youth's involvement in electoral violence in Edo State? Is it a welcome development? It's like the politicians these days, they've decided to take up this additional feature, using the youths as a tool in making sure that they get into power. So what is your own take in youth involvement in electoral violence?
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. Again, looking at youth involvement in politics, and if it's a recent trend of the high number of inclusion in political parties, involving them in some way or in the increase of electoral violence, to me it's not a new thing. It has always been that the older generations have looked into their strength and discovering that a whole lot of things that are involved in the play of electoral violence can't be done by them. So what they do, they sought after the young hearts. You know, when we're talking about youth, talking about people that are energetic, people that are full of enthusiasm and strength, that will be ready to do everything as long as their strength can push. Now, what the situations that our sector, the Nigerian sector, even at Globe, has created for the youth, we discovered that I usually believe, or I have oftentimes told people, that most of the in electoral violence are those that are having a setback, an emotional setback, where maybe a lot of them have suffered for broken homes, a lot of them have arisen from a place where they have been treated somehow. So they grew up creating their world for themselves, and as far as they want to live out of that world and become somebody, they can do anything just for anything. So this mindset that they have, that okay, even if my life is at stake, I don't care, pending when what I do now, just fetch me what I want. It's not a trend, it's not a new thing, but I would only say it has increased because a lot of them have this myopic belief that it is what I can gain now that matters to me, forgetting that the future holds a whole lot for them. Now, the political parties that have discussed, that have decided to involve the youth, it's because they just know they cannot be at the forefront of this violence being played during election. They want to pretend they have a name to protect, which I use the word pretend because whatever you can ask someone to do on your behalf, you may not be physically seen doing it, but at the long run, you have been the one that have actually done it. So that's why I use the word pretend. They want to pretend to the world that they are good, so they recruit these boys that have been bought over, that have been conscientized negatively, that they give them, it's just like a devil taking something from you to give you the world. I'm going to give you money, I'm going to give you position, but they discover that if they happen to die in the process of carrying out this violence, nobody will go to fight these persons for one or two things that is supposed to be their benefit. So now they have discovered that these youths, some of them don't have names, some of them don't have families that will come and fight for them because of the upbringing that I talked about, those that have suffered emotionally. So you see a lot of them that school drops out, you see a lot of them that are into drugs. So they really have no value for much value for their life anymore. So the politicians, they decide to use these people because they know at the end of the day nobody may be coming after them.
As you've heard from Comrade Gracious, giving an insight on why did most of these youths they involve themselves in electoral violence. Some of them, you said, is from the mindset, the way most of them they were brought up. Okay, Comrade Alari, see, you are in the Students and the Youth Association, and so you have a broader knowledge about most of these youths and what they can do. Now, what do you think is the motivating factor? What motivates these youths to want to involve themselves in any form of electoral violence?
Well, thank you very much. You know, what I think is the motivating factor, as you have asked, is what predisposes them with what makes them want to do these things. And I think it's their situation, the current situation they found themselves. Because if you take a look at the particular set of people, youths, that are into these electoral violences, they are those that are, first of all, one of the factors is poverty. Poverty is a major factor. Unemployment is also there. Also illiteracy is a major factor. You can also look at some of the youths, just like my fellow Comrade Grace said. Some of them lack this self-worth. Some of them they lack this self-worth. There's also peer group influence too. These are things that predisposes them to want to go into electoral violences. And it's, you see, the truth is also the desperation in the part of our politicians too. It's also a major factor that should be looked into in terms of these the motivating factors of electoral violences in the state. And I'll say that it's on the increase. As you said earlier, it's on the increase, and it's seriously something that should be looked into, considering the consequences, the aftermath of these things. It goes as far and as worse as involving loss of lives and properties, and even post-election violence or issues like even increase the criminal rates and criminal activities in the states. But you find out that these weapons are given to youth to perpetrate these acts are not retracted from them after election. And definitely, after they are being paid for these activities, they are left to go about their normal daily hustles. So it will definitely, because with these arms that they have, definitely increase criminal rate and criminal activities in the state and the country. And in as much as one we must also say that I want to also appreciate this Mind initiative, but with programs like this and talk shows, TV, radio, and print media advertisements, when we are getting close to elections like this, to help a long way in trying to curb the issue of electoral violence. And also, we must know I think I want to appreciate the federal government of Nigeria for their recent initiative on the 774,000 jobs. You know, those the youths that are gainfully employed or that are occupied thereof will not find themselves doing these things. So these ones that are into electoral violence, that are being used by the politicians for electoral violence, are those that you must agree with me are not, in quotes, educated. Not in quotes, really educated. So that's why I want to appreciate the federal government for this recent 704,000 job scheme that's looking into the less, just to involve them in menial jobs. And I think such innovatives, the state government also in their own little capacity take up such, local government take up such, it will help in reducing the current statistics of over 50 million unemployed youths in the country. So thank you very much.
Thank you. You've heard it all from Comrade Alaris. He had made mention of some very, very important facts on why youths tend to involve themselves in electoral violence. But there's something that comes to mind, especially from the past and the recent times. Most youths, they involve themselves in electoral violence, some will say, all because of power. Now, they will say, now, most politicians want to work with youths that have power. And now, for a youth to have power, they said you have to have you have to have a particular territory which you have a command over. So I don't know your take on that, because most youths these days, what is happening currently is what they've seen in the past. What those people that have handled some position in the past, they have benefited from such things, so they want to replicate it in this current administration or in the current election. So what is your own take on that?
Yeah, you're very correct. Like, I want to agree with my colleague when he talked about the level of education. I thank God for programs like this that is constantly creating awareness and sensitization to the people on some of the risks that are involved in this. Yes, and it's not to all, it's to very few of them. Few of them in the sense that, if I borrow your word, those that have the power. And this power, it's not even a legal power, it's an illegal power. No, associated from their upbringing, I must use a keyword, cultism. You discover that those of them that are so highly involved in cultism, they have a sphere with which they influence. And that area where they influence, the people there are loyal to them. So when we're talking about power, I want us to define it, because I will not use power as it were, and we use a negative influence on the society. Those that actually have people that they are ruling and dominating over negatively. So you discover that when the elected get into position, and you see someone that is doing his best to become responsible in the society, is striving to get appointments, while you discover that these people that have done nothing, when I mean contributing to the society, are getting positions. So this is a negative influence that is telling on the youth. And until it is looked into and addressed, I believe it's going to be a continuous one. I'll use this opportunity to reach out to our leaders, especially those of them that will come contest and get into power. It is high time we start changing the situation, so that people will not start thinking that they are also supporting, funding, financing, and influencing these negative social vices. Yes, as God will have it, like I told someone, the little we can do, we will keep doing, just to let people know. The power of awareness, the power of sensitization can never be undermined. Believe you me, a lot of persons, I think the percentage of persons that were wrongly informed about electoral violence, a lot of them are refraining. That's why you see clips of leaders gathering together, calling talks to go do some things, and they will bring their children, unknown to them, recruited privately, to be at the forefront. And you will see them, my daughter, my children, oh, you don't want your children to be involved, and you want me to be involved. In 20 persons that would risk his life to participate in electoral violence, if there's going to be an award, it's not going to be more than 1 or 2. It is that 1 or 2 that will now, out of his benevolence, give them whatever they want in cash. Then, of course, there are different titles in their negative word, for me not to mention so many. In a nutshell, the power they are talking about is a negative influence on our youth. And until it is addressed, we begin to think that the leaders themselves are supporting them. Because if I know that you have what you are doing is not legal, if I know what you are doing is not of societal benefit, or what is worthy of emulation, I will not see any reason for me to pick you up and appoint you to be somebody. I must have seen the good impact that you have created on either the youth or the society at large. So for me to pick you and be appointing you to be such, under quotes, I am indirectly supporting you. So we are making an appeal to as many of our contestants, especially in Edo gubernatorial election that is forthcoming. We have been doing a lot of peace advocacies, and which I know Mind Initiative is at the front. We are pleading. The lives of our people are very, very important to us. It is the vote we want and not the gun. They have discovered that if they put gun ahead, they do some of this activity, you will see them maybe losing that particular center. What about the pre-electoral election? You will see, because maybe you are a frontman in a particular party, if they cannot reach out to you, they reach out to your family members. Like the incident we heard at is it Ego or Palm Mission the other time, where the wife of one of the political chieftain was, you know, all of these things we should really put into check, and our society will start having stronger hope, benefit, and trust in our leaders.
Thank you. Just in case you just joined us, this is the Mind Initiative, and the topic for today is youth involvement in electoral violence. Now, you know, comrade, you know that most people might have a very, very different definition of what violence means when it comes to electoral processes. You understand? Electoral violence comes as far as from the higher institution. You know, most times when they do this SCG election, you see some boys. They would. I remember there was a time I actually did one at a time, and I had like some group of boys. They came to my room. You understand? But now I want you to just give an overview of what electoral violence entails, so that the youth out there will understand when they are doing the particular. You know, this electoral violence. They will know what it is. So just give an overview of what electoral violence is, so that the people out there will.
Yeah, thank you very much. You see, before we talk about electoral violence, I think we should talk about violence. When you mean violence, it's anything that is capable of, I think anything that is against the normal, a misnomer, is violence. And then relating it into for elections, talking about electoral violences. Electoral violences also include electoral malpractices. You don't necessarily need to carry guns to perpetrate electoral violence. That you are inflicting or trying to upturn the normal process, the electoral violence. And I'm thank God to at least the way the Nigerian Constitution is structured. Yeah. We should, I think our politicians should, we have legal means. If you are not comfortable with the way and manner the election was conducted, or the results was announced, or you feel there was some misnomer or malpractice, you use the judicial means. And I think it's better that way, and saves a lot of because if you watch most of this violence, apart from the few ones that takes place during the election, where you feel you have a snatching of ballot boxes and shootings. Periodically, some go as far as even just destroying the ballot box. Because I think during the last general elections in Lagos, we saw some video clips where some youths would just come, gather the ballot box, the ballot paper, and set it up at place. And so you see those situations are the kind of things that makes up electoral violence. And I want to also add my voice to that of Comrade Grace, where she said the politicians and when they eventually get to power. And if I'm to understand that properly, she was trying to say that they should see some innovations in somebody before at least you give him an opportunity. Yes, to become that. But I want to also add that another best way that this can also be checked is the youths. Why do they want to involve the youth? Why do they really want to use the youth? Because the youths, they are believed to be more energetic, fast to actions and reactions.
And they don't think of the consequences.
They don't think of the consequences because of the reasons she gave at the very beginning. Most of them have even left their homes years. They are feeding for themselves. So they are thinking of what to benefit now. So if government can bring up initiatives, programs to engage this youth and to harness those potentials, when they have these potentials and they are not being harnessed, they will use them for the wrong ways and the wrong negatively. So, but if you catch them young and harness these potentials in them early enough, I think that will also help to check the issue of electoral violence. Because one thing we're not going to take away from our politicians is desperation. That is the truth. And this desperation is what leads to electoral violence. Yes. Because they want to get it at all costs and by all means. But if the youths are properly aware, and if there are the programs like this organized by this Mind Initiative, if there are continuous programs, continuous awareness seminars, shows, workshops like this, it will help a long way in creating an awareness within the youth. And that alone will check. Because the politicians don't have who to use. They will have no other option. That they play to the game the way to play to the right gallery. That's what I think. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I know you have been it has been an educative timeout on Mind Initiative on this particular topic, youth involvement in electoral violence. Now, the other question is, how do youth involvement in electoral violence has it affected women and people with disabilities? Has this violence during the electoral process affected this set of people? Because we've known in the past that electoral violence, also by youth involvement in electoral violence, a higher percentage is from the male. So how has it affected the women and people with disabilities?
I smiled when you started talking because this is one area that catches me so much, and if there's anything I've known for, it's things that affect women. Yes, in the general sector of life, you discover that one or two of those that are most vulnerable most times, it's usual women in quotes and persons living with disabilities. Yes, electoral violence has affected women and people living with disabilities in a very large number, in the sense that when, like recently, the interviews we've been doing of late, you'll hear a lot of them saying, I am not going. I don't have trousers to wear to pull my wrapper when the thing starts. Yes, I could say for a while now, there's been a little calm in the shooting of gun in some areas. Unless recently, when we have at Oshun, Abid Bayelsa and all that, we discovered that it's beginning to uprise again. Before now, it was actually coming down. You discover that women, they decide to take to their camp. They will tell you, I'm not going because I can't run. Those with disabilities, they are not just a go area, because especially when they don't have those that, even with those that cater for them, when things like that happen, you see them being abandoned and the persons will have to run for their life. And this has affected the high turnout of voters, which is one of the things we also campaign. For you to be able to have a free and fair election, it is a call out for large numbers of voters, but this cannot be because the violence have been on the increase. So there is no gainsaying as to how has it affected. It has indeed affected. Let me just quickly add this to the question you asked my brother. A lot of people do not know that there are fines attached to so many electoral violence, as little as me giving you a hate speech. Just threatening you to say, I don't want to see you there on election day. There are a lot of huge money that is attached to it. And trust me, when you are caught, there are very few politicians who want to stick their neck and their name to come and bail you. So if our youth get to understand that they are at risk of life imprisonment, 2 years imprisonment, 50 million, 500,000 as fine, 5 million, they will not dare to get themselves involved. Yes. So we are advocating. We want our women to come out en masse. I think in the statistics of this Edo State registered voters that was released, 42% of women are very qualified to vote in this election. But if you discover that they get so frightened, they get so not wanting to come because of the risk involved, you'll see a drop down in that number. And before you know what is happening, a lot of women are disenfranchised, a lot of persons living with disability, and this will not be so good to get an accurate result of the election that we're expecting in September.
Wow. So our advice to the women is that they should not be scared.
Yeah. For the peace, we have been campaigning. Like when the program recently, and I projected that by God's grace, I just believe that this whole violence threat will have to end and die the night to election. So I plead to our women. It's for me, great for backing up. I am pleading to our women out there. They should come out en masse. And when our strength is seen by the numbers, I believe a lot of this violence will want to be dropped and shunned for good.
Okay. That's nice. I guess the women and people with disabilities, they've heard that the violence would there's not going to be any form of violence during the electoral process. Now, sir, please, how do we curb youth involvement in electoral violence in a gubernatorial election? How do we curb it to the barest minimum? So, what's your own view and how we can?
Yes, relating the question, as you said, to the gubernatorial election, and considering the fact that the election is just barely a month away, less than a month away, and though there are so much that can still be done, yes, but things like this program being done to increase the awareness among the youths, something that should really be looked into. Yes, our television programs, advertisements, shows, workshops should be done, and also gainfully, I don't know the word employing, engaging the youth, gainfully engaging them, especially in times like this. I think when you use them for things like involve them in processes of the election, adult staffs, you also to a very large extent have reduced the incidence of violence in the election. Also, there's another important thing that can still be done to reduce violence, especially when it takes taking into cognizance the Edo State election. The politicians, the candidates, involving them, meeting with them, and letting them see reasons. I want to, the issue of political apathy that Comrade Grace talked about is something that really needs to be overemphasized and talked on. You need to make them understand that when the people are scared, there will be reduced participation. And when there is reduced participation, there will be reduced turnout of voters. And I see it as, I no longer call it democracy, when far less than 60% or even 50% is not taking decisions because people are scared to come out and vote on election day. So the politicians should talk to their supporters. One thing was possibly take into cognizance the fact that all these youths are linked to one political party or one politician. Yes, what we call principal. So the politicians, the candidates, should make use of advising their supporters, the youths involved, on the need to shun violence and embrace peace. Because truly, the benefits of peace cannot be overemphasized, and also the consequences and aftermath of electoral violence is really, really something that should be taken off. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time, and just in case you are just joining us, it's the MIND initiative, and the topic is youth involvement in electoral violence. It should be stopped. It's not something any youth should get involved in. And now this is like a roundup of every other questions that we have. Now, in the not too young to run bill assigned by the current administration, now youths were supposed to involve in a very large mass in the electoral process and in the electoral stuff. But most of the youths, they have this mindset that they need this the financial willpower to contest for an election. So instead, they decide to say, okay, let me work for this particular politician, and after I must have worked for him, then I will now stay under his umbrella after some time, and then I might get elected in no distant time, which they've seen in the past. So it's your take on that? Because is it because of the finance that most youths gets involved, have to sell themselves for the electoral violence process?
I call it apprenticeship.
Okay, yeah, that's called political apprenticeship.
This is sure, okay, political apprenticeship, I said that Comrade Grace. I was having a discussion with a friend, I think a few weeks ago on WhatsApp, and we talked about the same thing. He kept on saying, there's no need, the truth is that we should just forget about this thing because we're just wasting our time. They will always have their way, this, that. I told him something. I said, because for me, I share the same idea of what you just said, the political apprenticeship input. You know, it still boils down to the issue of poverty. Where you see on election day, it happens and it's very painful. Where you see people asking, where for the share money. They want to collect their share before they go and pass their vote.
Currently, people are already waiting to collect money.
They are waiting to collect money. So it's something that I think until the incidence of poverty reduce in the country, it will be very, very hard to find the youths, the young graduates from the university, who just finished NYSC, maybe is lucky enough to just get a job earning 20,000 naira, 30,000 naira, wants to contest for governor. Such a person, without sponsorship, winning the elections because of the current situation we find ourselves in the country. That's why you find youths saying they want to cling. And that's where the quotes of if you can't beat them, you join them comes in. And when you are not among them, you can't. When you don't join them, you can't be among them. So it's only when you are not into it, when you have the opportunity to not get an office. And I want to also use this as a medium to reach out to. The truth is, we also have some youths that are empowered and in office. They should see it as an opportunity to involve and empower other youths and bring them into it. I think that is the best way we can really increase the participation of youth in governance. And talking about the not too young to rule, increase those that are already there should see it as an opportunity to help others that are not also there should keep trying. Participate, make yourself involved. You won't sit in your house and get into it. That's not how you get it. You have to, if you know you have to cling. It's not a bad thing to cling to a politician, as far as you don't allow yourself to be used for electoral vices and electoral violence. So you can involve yourself in the process, pick a candidate that you know your conscience supports, work for him, and if you have the opportunity to now be identified and you are empowered by virtue of an appointment, you from there out to help other youths into offices. And by that, before you know, the rate or percentage of youths that are involved in governance will be increasing in the country. I think that's the best way, because reducing the incidence of poverty in Nigeria is something that's going to come over a long period of time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, just to add to that was the last phase he talked about getting yourself involved. The truth of the matter is you don't wait until it's an elective year before you indicate interest. Over the years, from the grassroots, from the local politics, you get involved, even as much as your street. The vigilantes that are in your streets, how often do you know them, or do they know you? If you don't get involved in things, it is not when it is time for the big thing. So let's get ourselves involved. Let's get ourselves equipped. Actually, you may be a pro in a particular place, but when you are to do this, you have to know what it involves to be a specialist in that angle. Get yourself involved, get yourself skilled, get yourself equipped, so that when it is time, and besides, you also have a positive influence, a positive impact on those under your influence. That way, they can support, they can trust you, even they can recommend you to people that will be of great help. Then wherever you are, be a sought after. I tell people, I cannot be a place and nobody will know me before I leave that place. Be a sought after. Let people want to know what is the force behind you, and this you can do when you get yourself built up as youths.
Wow. Thank you. Now the youth, you've heard that. You don't need to rob a bank or break a bank for you to be in power. You can actually do it in the right way. You can actually claim. He said that you can do it in the right way. You don't have to do what is against the will or what is against the norm or the policy of the country. So you can actually you can be a legitimate follower of a politician. You don't need to start carrying guns or doing whatever for any politician, because there is no politician or no political system that is worth your blood, that is worth you killing a fellow man for. Now, in our final notes, I don't know your final word to the voters out there, to the youths in particular out there. Just the final word, just an advice to them, so that they would not. The election is just like few weeks away, so that they should not involve themselves in electoral violence. Just an advice, and we wrap up the program.
Okay, for me, election no be war. Use your sense. Life is sweet. No politician is worth you dying for.
Thank you very much. That was a wonderful final note. And for me, I want to say, should come out, to shun violence, cast their votes, and also stay back to defend their votes. Should use their energy to defend their vote and not to disrupt the process. And in the long run, I believe that with God on our side, we the youth will take over. Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming. I want to say very thank you for your time, for taking our time to join us on Mind Initiative. And the program is still youth involvement in electoral violence. The election not be war. As she said, you don't need to shed blood on that election day. Before the election, after the election, you don't need to. Defending your vote doesn't mean you have to fight other political parties. You just stand and make sure that your vote is counted. So with that, we say a very big thank you to everyone for joining us on this wonderful program today. Mind Initiative, is a non-governmental organization and is poised to giving you, educating you on what is the right that every youth should get involved themselves with. So with this, we say a big thank you to you and the director and every member of the team. Stay blessed.